Meus amigos surveillent, nous passons le travail, ça, meus amigos surveillent, de la faute et mon caillot. Meus amigos surveillent, qui protègent notre vie, meus amigos surveillent, parce qu'on est qui nous lie, c'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là. Meus amigos surveillent, nous passons le travail, ça, meus amigos surveillent, de la faute et mon caillot. Meus amigos surveillent, qui protègent notre vie, meus amigos surveillent, parce qu'on est qui nous lie, c'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là.
Pas de ni peur ni crainte, on allait dans tout petit coin, côté peuple a péri, sans sauveur, sans bon Dieu, c'est nous-mêmes qui pour dire, Jésus-Christ tombe la vie, on est non pas seul, notre travail ça.
Manger, prêcher, les manger, c'est travail pas de chrétiens.
Non pas de quitter peuple à mourir, non fait noir.
Sous montagne de coups en plein, tout le c'est mes paroles.
Ça qui croit Dieu va sauver, ça qui pas croire va condamner.
Meus amigos surveillent, nous passons le travail, ça, meus amigos surveillent, de la faute et mon caillot. Meus amigos surveillent, ils protègent notre vie, meus amigos surveillent, et ce qu'on est qui nous lie, c'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là.
Petit dilote, nous n'ayons petit encore. Adieu bon Dieu a puni pour tout le monde qui est chrétien. Faire rassemblement pour n'aller pécher la Dieu, en persévérer dans notre travail ça.
Notre travail pour dans l'école, nous le travail pour nous là, oui.
Ça c'est une responsabilité pour chrétiens.
Travail nous va couronner, que n'a pas pour démontrer, oui.
Nous va mettre frère nous l'emmène, nous va chanter avec Zangio.
Meus amigos surveillent, nous passons notre travail, ça, meus amigos surveillent, de la faute et mon caillot. Meus amigos surveillent, ils protègent notre vie, meus amigos surveillent, ce qu'on est qui nous lie, c'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là. Meus amigos surveillent, nous passons notre travail, ça, meus amigos surveillent, de la faute et mon caillot. Meus amigos surveillent, ils protègent notre vie, meus amigos surveillent, ce qu'on est qui nous lie, c'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là. C'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là. C'est Jésus-Christ sauveur, nous en financer là.
Amour sublime, immense charité, Jésus, victime, méprisé, maltraité, souffrit la peine de mes nombreux forfaits et brisa ma chaîne ô gloire à jamais. Seigneur, ta grâce atteint jusqu'aux cieux. Elle surpasse tout don merveilleux que dans ce monde j'aurais souhaité. Cette grâce inonde dans racheté. Quand je chancelle sur un sombre chemin, l'ami fidèle me saisit par la main. Alors la crainte se dissipe aussitôt. Plus d'amères plaintes, le regard en haut. Seigneur, ta grâce atteint jusqu'aux cieux. Elle surpasse tout don merveilleux que dans ce monde j'aurais souhaité. Cette grâce inonde dans racheté. Ta croix sanglante, elle seule ma rançon. L'âme souffrante y trouve un plein pardon. C'est mon refuge dans la vie et la mort. Devant le grand juge, oh quel heureux sort. Seigneur, ta grâce atteint jusqu'aux cieux. Et surpasse tout don merveilleux que dans ce monde j'aurais souhaité. Cette grâce inonde dans racheté.
Your love is kind. Your love is patient. You fill my heart with so much peace and joy. You're amazing. You make my life feel bright.
Friends, this is Ravi Zacharias. The year just having come to an end, and the wonderful support that our friends have given to us, I want to say a big heartfelt thank you. And now as we enter the new year with a busy calendar once again, may I encourage you to always keep us in your prayers. We really need it. We are in fairly tense situations. Many universities and forums and so on need your prayers, need your support. Please keep RZIM in your thoughts and in your prayers. And as the Lord leads you, do continue to stand with us. How do most people today really come to their belief systems? What about your friends and my friends, or your children and my children? I believe today they come to their belief systems by an invasion of the imagination through the arts, which is a second level in philosophy.
The existence of God is not a new debate, but the ideological battle rages on and the implications are crucial. From law to morality to our own eternal existence, everything crumbles with God out of the picture. Hello and welcome to Let My People Think with author and apologist Ravi Zacharias. I'm Jo Vitale, a speaker with RZIM and the Dean of Studies for the Zacharias Institute. On April the 8th, 1966, Time magazine bore a cover with the question, "Is God dead?" in bold red text on a black background. More than 40 years later, many are asking that same question. Culture continues to debate the existence of God, and the attacks from those wanting to bury the idea of God have become more prominent and more volatile in recent years. This week and next, we'll hear a fascinating series by Ravi Zacharias that was originally delivered at Harvard University. Let's listen in as he dismantles the philosophy of atheism in his message, "Is Atheism Dead? Is God Alive?"
I recall many years ago, as a teenager, trying to do some reading in my living room in New Delhi, India, and completely surprised to listen to the words of a song that was being narrated with a kind of an Eastern chant in the background, and it was being very clearly spoken out. The words were under the refrain of the chorus, "Who will answer?" And Ed Ames was the narrator, and this is the way the words went. He said, "From the canyons of the mind, we wander on and stumble blind, wade through the often tangled maze of starless nights and sunless days, hoping for some kind of clue, a road to lead us to the truth. But who will answer? Side by side, two people stand together, vowing hand in hand that love's embedded in their hearts, but soon an empty feeling starts to overwhelm their hollow lives. And if they ask the hows and whys, who will answer? Far upon a distant hill, a young man's lying very still. His arms will never hold his child because a bullet running wild has struck him down, and now he cries, 'My God, oh why, oh why?' And who will answer? As high upon a lonely ledge, a figure teeters near the edge, while jeering crowds collect below to egg him on with go man go, and none will ask what led him to his private day of doom, and who will answer? As 'neath the spreading mushroom tree, the world revolves with apathy, while overhead a row of specks roars on, drowned out by discotheques, and if the secret button's pressed because one man has been outguessed, who will answer?" And then this verse, "Is our hope in walnut shells worn round the neck with temple bells, or deep within some cloistered walls where hooded figures spray in shawls, or high upon some dusty shelves, or in the stars, or in ourselves? who will answer? And the chorus goes, if the soul is darkened by a fear it cannot name, if the mind is baffled when the rules don't fit the game, who will answer? Who will answer? Who will answer? I have to admit that as a teenager, when I first heard the words from Ed Ames coming over the air, my immediate reaction would have gone something like this had I verbalized it. I would not have anticipated that a nation which was so successful and so well-to-do and had so much of luxury surrounding it would provoke such a series of questions. I could see it being raised in India, where one of the most...
Okay, thank you for watching. Just testing this new gadget. Can you please tell me how I sound over the mic and also how you see me on your end?
Popular songs of that time when I was growing up was from a film called Mother India, which said, Duniya mein hum aaye hain to jeena hi padega, jeevan hai agar zahar to peena hi padega. Literally meaning, if I have come into this world, I have to live. If living is poisonous, I've got to drink it. That fatalism, that nihilism, that hurled into existence philosophy, and I've got to make the best of it, was very expected in the Indian culture and in the Indian scene. But that it was coming out of here did surprise me. Now, isn't it interesting to you, and as it is interesting to me, that with all of the innovations we have, all of the knowledge into which we are immersed, all the facilities to which we have access in our time at the tail end of the 20th century, the songs in effect have not changed. The questions still remain the same. And Camus said it a few decades ago. The fundamental question about life is not meaning. Anything is meaning. Anything else is secondary. And until that question of meaning is dealt with, he says, I really care not for what the answers are to the other queries. Muhammad Ali was reputed to be flying in a plane once. His name is synonymous with many things. Humility is not one of them. And while he was flying on this plane, it hit moderate turbulence. For those of you who fly, you're aware of the fact that when the pilot tells you it's moderate, that is a euphemism for, if you have any religious feelings, now's the time to start expressing them, because mild is all I can endure. And a flight attendant came over, had ordered or had announced that all of the passengers needed to fasten their seatbelts. Everyone complied except Ali. She walked over to him while the plane was bouncing around and said, excuse me, sir, would you please fasten your seatbelt? To which he promptly replied, Superman don't need no seatbelt. She didn't miss a beat and said to him, Superman don't need no airplane either. In many ways, assuming ourselves to be super people, somehow having conquered some known mountains in our time, we have assumed we do not need the security or the seatbelt of this fundamental question. And I believe it was Will Durant who said, this is the greatest question of our time, the existence of God or the absence of his existence. As one who has lectured and taught in philosophy in various parts of the globe, I believe all philosophy ultimately either is born out of or is built upon these two foundational questions. Number one, does God exist? And number two, if he does, what is his nature? What is his character? Now, obviously, dear friends, there are many, many levels at which this can be answered, and you are here with your own presuppositions and your own views. One of the struggles that I personally have, having been transplanted from the East to the West, and having seen what religious anger and intolerance can do in some parts of the world, and having seen what ideologies can do, albeit atheistic, in other parts of the world, and let us not forget that. One of the most troubling aspects to me as one who is trying to wrestle with these issues is born out of a concern why it is not possible to disagree without being disagreeable. Why it is not possible to discuss these issues without generating more heat than light. is it not important to deal with these fundamental issues in a reasonable manner? There are many, many voices addressing this, and let me just make one or two other comments before defining our terms and dealing with the issue of atheism and the uniqueness of Christ from his framework of theism. There are many good minds coming from different perspectives. There are many good minds coming from different perspectives. When I was studying at Cambridge University, my professor of philosophy was Don Cupid. Don Cupid happens to be an ordained priest, but is also an atheist. He has written a book called The Sea of Faith, amongst many other books, and someone has appropriately called it Faith at Sea. Because if you don't like what Don Cupid believes, come back the next semester. He may have changed it in the process of his own mystical growth. I don't say that to be in any way derogatory. That would come from his own lips. But in that same institution is Brian Hebblethwaite, a brilliant philosopher who, in response to Don Cupid's book, The Sea of Faith, has written an outstanding book in defense of theism called The Ocean of Truth. You can read the debates between the brilliant mind of Bertrand Russell and the counter perspective of the Jesuit philosopher Frederick Copleston. You can come right down into the scene here and look at the battle in the same issue between Kai Nielsen from Canada, one of the most prolific writers in the field of atheism, and J.P. Moreland, the fine Christian philosopher teaching in California. And their book, Does God Exist?, is probably one of the finest in its genre, well critiqued by Dallas Willard of USC and Peter Kraft here right out of Boston. Or you can look at two colleagues teaching right at Cambridge, Stephen Hawking, in its avowed agnosticism, and the counter perspective from John Polkinghorne, the quantum physicist. I happen to take some courses under Polkinghorne, listen to Hawking through his speech synthesizer and so on. Both of them coming from two completely different perspectives. Polkinghorne, a deeply committed Christian, and Hawking, as I said, an agnostic. There are good minds on both sides of the debate. And therefore, at least one thing we need to contend with, that this problem is not merely intellectual, for intellectuals have come to it from different perspectives. Now, I have a little grid in my own mind when I teach philosophy or even talk to my children, and that is this. You don't have to endorse it wholeheartedly, but in a popular level, I think you can identify with it. Philosophy, or my belief system, basically comes to me in one of three possible ways. Level one is what I call theory. And if you're dealing with theoretical philosophy, you're dealing with the classical philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, or you're going to some of the great Enlightenment thinkers like Hume and Kant and so on, you're dealing with arguments at a highly theoretical level, albeit very vital and important in an academic pursuit. But let's face it, most human beings will never crack open a book by Socrates or Plato or Aristotle and have no particular interest on Kant's view of ethics. Yes. How do most people today really come to their belief systems? What about your friends and my friends, or your children and my children? I believe today they come to their belief systems by an invasion of the imagination through the arts, which is a second level in philosophy. One of the reasons that existentialism gained such a strong foothold in many parts of the world, particularly in Europe, and captured the imagination of the university students of the 60s and 70s, whether it was Sartre or Camus or so on, it was because they came to the thinking process through the avenue of the arts. And you can go in to see a play on Broadway, or you can turn to many a movie or listen to music, and you will find a certain philosophy of life is either being endorsed, espoused, or questioned. And the popular mind today comes to philosophy not from a theoretical superstructure, but it comes to it from an infrastructure of the arts. And level 3 philosophy is sheer prescriptivism. You sit around the kitchen table and your teenager comes home from school and says, you know, Dad, today we were discussing such and such an ethical view in class. Some people said it was right and some people said it was wrong. What do you think? And if the person happens to be professing Christian or someone, he says, well, son, you know, we believe what the Bible says, and in such and such a book, in such and such a chapter, this is what it says about such and such a behavior. And the son is looking utterly utterly perplexed at his dad. He is dying to say it, but may not say it. What he's dying to say is, you know, Dad, the Bible works very well around our kitchen table because the structure here is plausible for such pontification or prescription. But what you think is your strongest argument, Dad, if I were to go into the school tomorrow and quote what you've just quoted to me, I'd be laughed out of the classroom as having presented the least effective argument of them all. It's sheer prescriptivism. And if you want to know what prescriptivism is, listen to the talk show hosts who will pontificate on ice cream parlors and sexuality and the origin of the universe with equal sense of distancing of their emotions from any one of those issues. This is what I believe, so must you also. So you've got, let me inverse that for a moment. So you've got the substructure here of theory, you've got the infrastructure here of arts, and you've got the superstructure of prescriptivism. Now, please listen to me. As I look at those three levels, it is possible to come to it from level 1 of theory and level 2 of the arts or existentially felt issues. You can come to both these subjects meaningfully and address the issue of atheism or theism. Prescriptivism ultimately is beyond debate because it will be a purely subjective interaction of one idea against the other. Now, what I'm going to do tonight is come to this at a second level of felt need. I'm going to come to it more from the existential trauma, because I firmly believe, ladies and gentlemen, in an issue such as this, it is very easy to get lost in words and ideas and climb higher and higher along the ladder of abstraction.
Thank you for listening to Redemption Radio.
You're really not sure. It's like reading some of those great debates and saying at the end of it, it all sounded good, but it was not for me. Let me therefore anchor it and deal with it from a level of the existential struggle and the questions you and I have to raise existentially on whether or not the question of God is a valid point, and if it is valid, how does it address my need? Now, let me give you two definitions here of what atheism is all about. Is a meaningless one. That's where Kai Nielsen would build his whole attack, if you have read his